I found this video. It's called Once More Onto the Breach, Dear Friends, Once More. It's a article about Comicsgate, and I've been kind of holding off on it because it's really, really long. The author doesn't say the author's name. Odd. Author is very wordy. The author's name's not listed. I'll look into that in a second. It's from the website comiclists.wordpress.com. And they go on and on about Comicsgate. But the thing is, it's interesting. But the thing is, someone answers them. One of the respondents is very, very articulate. And so I'll read, the author makes 8 points. I'll read the 8 points, and then I'll go to the guy's response, because the response also repeats the inquiries. And his response is very clever. 8 truths the Comicsgate gang really needs to accept for the sake of their own happiness and mental health. 1. Diversity, however you want to define the word, is not the reason why comics aren't selling the way they used to. Another day, another controversy. This time it's Captain Marvel, or more specifically, it's the fact that the star of Marvel's latest big-budget film said some things about employment diversity in Hollywood that made a few people angry, which, of course, already off the bat you start with a lie. Captain Marvel, Brie Larson, said some racist, sexist, and ageist things, if that's what you're talking about, the racism. So I'll go through each question, and I'll read the first paragraph in response. Her second point is, comics have always been political. When people repeating the Comicsgate line don't want to be seen as attacking specific groups of people for ruining their comics, they often use language that boils down to, comics these days are just too darn political. If we can only get back to that golden age when writers focused on just writing good stories, they tell us, then their comics will appeal to a wider audience, and more people will start reading them. Well, I think you could stop the paragraph right there, because, yeah, what you just said is accurate. More people will start reading them. Well, it's hard not to read too political as giving too much space to people who don't look or act just like me. Are you insane? This level of cognitive dissonance. Let's be kind and assume this is a good faith objection. Oh, okay. See how long they go on and on and on. They just spurg off. Seriously? Ghostbusters? Oh, that movie was, what a disappointment. Ghostbusters, the secretary, you portrayed the secretary as being legitimately developmentally disabled. That movie was sad. Her fourth point is, did I skip the third point? Damn it. Oh, your favorite writer or artist not getting a gig is not a freedom of speech issue. Yeah, okay, we understand the First and 14th Amendment. We don't need some spur gun. Anyway, this comes up when a writer or artist who identifies the Comicsgate movement talks about how they lost job because of their political beliefs. Fans who accept, though, it is a freedom of speech issue, because it touches on the idea of open forums and whether or not social media is an open forum. And I guarantee you, I think there's a very high likelihood that within 10 years, social media will be covered under the First Amendment, because it has no legitimate competition as a free speech platform. And what happens after that is probably subject for another video, because we will finally have free speech. Fans who accept this version of events then repeat the assertion until it's accepted as fact that all the editors at the big comic companies are part of a leftist cabal. They are. That gleefully blackballs creative folks whose politics they don't like. They do. She goes on and on. So go to point 4. There is no more bad writing in comics today than there ever was, so let's stop pretending that's a real issue here. You should, she's bringing up points that don't help her side. Because most people know it doesn't make them look good to rail against the existence of women, non-European people, and others as a reason why today's comics are bad. You'll often hear people in those Comicsgate discussions say that now you're straw-manning them and poisoning their well. They say what they're really mad about is bad writing. They are. The writing is very, very bad. If you ask me if I could write Miss Marvel or Captain Marvel, yeah, I could. I could write it. I could write Iceman better, because I would write Iceman as a superhero, a normal superhero, and I mean me or anyone else, anyone who's some writing background. the trick is to write Iceman as a cool, no pun intended, character, a good fun character who happens to be gay. You throw in a gay kiss every now and then, or a little bit about the relationship. But if you look at most comics don't focus extensively on the relationship. Even if you wanted, okay, well, I want a gay comic that does focus on the relationship. Fine. But the thing is, they made Iceman a sociopath. Because Iceman is written by Sina Grace, who is a far left nut job. If you want a gay person to write him, the gay has to be moderate, or a Republican gay, or a non-gay person can write Iceman. Cannot write. All you do is you write a fun character, you write them in relationships. The relationships just happen to be gay relationships. That's it. How do you write a black character? Well, you write a character who does cool things, who looks good and is exciting. And then when you're done writing that character, if you want to make him black, make him black. You can make him Irish. You can make him Spanish. It doesn't matter. You write a good character. And if you want to sketch him in a little more ink, okay, well, we'll make him Spanish. A little more ink, well, we'll make him African. A little less ink, well, he'll be, I don't know, something else. He'll be Turkish or something. You don't set out to say, well, what's his personality? Oh, well, he's black. No. His personality has to be, he's an awesome character who grabs the reader. But I'm a normal person, and I have normal thoughts. So, remember when that new Ghostbuster movie came out a few years back? Long before the movie even hit theaters, the internet was on fire with mostly white and mostly male commenters. Facts, not in evidence. If you make a claim like that, you have to back it up. But I don't think you even believe what you're talking about. Okay, Invincible Iron Man, Riri Williams, and Thor. Though I said that is a pretty good cover. Riri is written as a autistic thief. Thor is written as a woman dying of cancer. Now, you can't make Thor because Thor is somebody's name. If you want to make her another, I don't know, one of the pantheon goddesses of thunder, I mean, you can make up a new character if you want, but you can't have her, I don't know about dying of cancer. That is like, comics are escapist fiction. And if you've ever spent time in a hospital, it sucks. It sucks. It really, really sucks. It's not fun. I don't want to be reminded of it. Her fifth point. New characters are written into existing books for reasons that have nothing to do with pushing an agenda. From what I can gather, reading their demands, the biggest fear... seriously, how many Comicsgate videos have you watched? None. You probably haven't watched any. You probably surfed Twitter for maybe a week and read some of the people like Ro Kumar just joking around. I don't think you've actually watched too many Comicsgate YouTube videos. The biggest fear, oh, come on, even your use of language is just cheesy, of these Comicsgate folks is a slight chance that someone somewhere is plotting to make them realize that people who don't look exactly like them exist. I don't, what do you... None of us look exactly alike. We're from all over the world, you idiot. You think a Russian identifies as an Irishman, who identifies as a Spanish, who identifies as a Portuguese, why are you lumping us all humans? It's just nonsense. Maybe that's not entirely fair. No shit. As far as I can tell, it's not the existence of non-white male straight characters they seem to object to. Just the idea that comic fans like them should be forced to see them in prominent roles. Well, hey, you know what? Are you writing in black ink in your ledger, or are you writing in red ink? You're writing in red ink because your books aren't selling. Red ink means it's a loss, not a profit. Hey, I'm all for equality. I just don't want this X-Men I started carrying about 5 minutes ago to get turned gay by some PC writer with an agenda. Most people, okay, I'm assuming your audience, comics are probably 95% American audience. What percentage of Americans are gay? 5%? That would be 1 out of 20, or 1 out of 20 people gay? I don't think it's even quite 5%. I'll say less than 5%. I'll say, okay, we'll say up to 5%. So if 95% of your audience is straight, you need to write predominantly, overwhelmingly straight comics. That's the fact. Just deal with it. Or some chick pushing Thor aside in his own book for a few issues before the blonde dude inevitably comes back. Is your stuff selling? It's not selling. She just goes on and on and on. Oh, this is a good point. The fact that people who bought your company bought it for the marketability of your legacy characters, not for whatever new characters you come up with. And they certainly don't want to get into any development deals with someone who might insist on ownership of their characters, since they just spent billions securing the rights to characters that are guaranteed to make them money. It's going to take a lot of convincing for them to take a gamble on your untested idea, unless your idea has a connection to one of the established characters. The entertainment business being what it is, majority, if not all, of your company's books printed are going to be part of a larger marketing plan. A plan in which your books support whatever big budget films produced by your parent company, not the other way around. No connection to these films means there's very little chance your character will see the light of day. Okay. People see these movies, these Marvel movies that are massively successful, and then they go in the comic book store and they look at the comics and they don't see the characters who are in the films in the comics, because the comic book characters got rid of the old characters. Okay, your parent company looking ahead and keen on conquering foreign markets. Show me a financial spreadsheet of how well American comics do in foreign markets. I think most of your market is internal. But okay, even if you are selling to, you're saying Europe, right? Europe is probably your number one group, and maybe some South American sales. I mean, you're not selling to the Middle East. You're not selling to Africa. You're selling probably to Europe. Well, Europeans will gladly buy English characters. In fact, they probably would prefer English or European characters. South Americans would obviously want to see South American characters, but it's just a much smaller market. Just go by the numbers. Your biggest market is probably the United States, and who comprises the United States? Mostly European people. And your secondary market is probably Europe, or European people. So you're actually hurting your argument when you talk about markets. And I know you're being disingenuous because you're not showing me any facts and figures. If you had the facts and figures in your favor, you would show them. It's just business, and it always has been. Precisely. The business is failing. Sales are down. Local comic book stores are going out of business. Oh, but there's all these digital sales. Except no one produces the numbers. If you can't produce the numbers to back up your argument, the numbers probably don't exist. Probably. 6 point, these attempts to sabotage movies and TV shows you don't like are pointless and need to stop. If they're pointless, then why would you even bring up the article? I mean, why would you bring up the point? This doesn't make sense. The only time I would say that it failed is, yes, for Captain Marvel. People were speaking out against Brie Larson's sexism, racism, and ageism. And Brie Larson, Captain Marvel, made it grossed $1 billion. Congratulations. I think that was the only L that the YouTube crowd, the right of center crowd took. That would be a big L, and yeah, you should have your laugh because it did gross $1 billion. Congratulations. 7-0. Oh, it's just this is the kind of crap you see posters on like 20-year-olds' walls. Nothing is stopping you from being the change you want to see. Yeah, there's no point to that. You're talking about throwing tantrums. Okay. To be fair, there are Comicsgate types putting their money where their mouths are by creating their own comics through publishers like Arcaven and Comicsgate, though the backers behind that one ran afoul. Why are you talking about the publishers instead of the books? The reason she's not talking about Jawbreakers and Cyberfrog and Iron Sights and all the rest is because she doesn't want to give them any advertising whatsoever. So she talks about the publishing companies as a way to go around that. This is just dirty pool. You can talk about projects that you don't necessarily support. You don't have to be this. This is just being petty. I don't get it either. I'm pretty sure I don't share the same political views as the minds behind Gun Ghoul or Alt Hero. Why aren't you talking about Cyberfrog? At the time of this writing was probably at $750,000. Jawbreakers and Iron Sights was over $500,000. Why don't you mention them? Either you don't know what you're talking about, which she doesn't know what she's talking about, or she just doesn't want to give them any more advertising. How many people you think are reading this article besides us? 1,000? I'll check later. Probably not even 1,000. No, they're taking advantage of the internet's ability to connect directly with their audiences. Good. Yes, you should connect directly with your audience. Bypass the usual comic distribution channels. Those channels suck. That shut out smaller players in the past. Yeah, there are guys on Comicsgate who have their first books, and they're say it takes about $30,000 to be solidly profitable. There are plenty of $30,000 campaigns, and hopefully their second book will be $40,000, and their third, you get the idea. Eighth point: this thing about social justice warrior being an insult, it's got to stop. Well, it doesn't make sense because I believe the left titled themselves social justice. I don't even know why to include this point. It doesn't help or hurt your argument. It's just kind of silly. Who wrote it? It doesn't say the title of the writer. That is really weird. Okay, Matthew responds, "Hey, Truths Comicsgate gang really need to accept for the sake of their own happiness and mental health." LOL. Okay, this should be fun. Let's see what you've got. Diversity, however you want to define the word, is not the reason why comics aren't selling the way they used to. No one ever said it was. What people said was a problem. What people said was a problem is when a particular sort of person decides to co-opt things to shove boring fake characters down the throat of the consumer, based not on having a good story to tell, but to pander to some sort of representation. At which point they hide the fact that they can't write behind a thin smokescreen of, "You just hate diversity." To which the answer is, no, hon, we've had diversity long before you got interested in comics in 2014. Diversity isn't something you invented. It's just something you used to hide your incompetence. It's quite a difference over 40 years, too. Let me stop you right there. What happened 40 years ago is of no merit to the discussion of market forces today. This is a discussion of the contemporaneous comic book industry. What happened 40 years ago is as relevant to the current industry as what happened in ancient Rome has to do with the GFC. Comics have always been political. No, they haven't. Being about politics is not the same thing as being political, because when people say they don't want politics in their comic books, what they mean is they don't want comics to be used as a bully pulpit for agitprop-style propaganda. Your favorite writer or artist not getting a gig is not a freedom of speech issue. It is when they're being run out of the industry, Mike Miller, Ethan Van Sciver, because of specific people who ran them out because they didn't like their politics. And yes, that's exactly what happened. The end result is that we no longer have a vibrant industry of superstar creators in comics. Instead, we have lackluster creators who are willing to work for nothing as long as they can use the comics as a platform for their own politics. There's no more bad writing in comics today than there ever was, so let's stop pretending that's the real issue here. LOL, no. There is significantly more bad writing today than at any time in comics. There's practically nothing but bad writing these days, and that's not an opinion. It's demonstrable, testable, objective fact. You're right there, buddy. Characterization has flatlined. There's less diversity of character than ever before in comics, which is a result of losing the diversity of thought we used to have in the writer's bullpen. Plots are mass-produced. Individual books practically don't exist outside of company-wide mandated directions, and relationship within books are shallow. See Iceman if you want to learn about shallow relationships. Nowhere is this as evident as it is with new female characters. Oh, you are spitting gold. Now, every female character is either the Ice Queen or the squeezing fangirl. Every female character now has to love the science, even though they clearly are written by people who don't know the first thing about science, and so have their super genius character making basic science mistakes that even a modern-day high school student wouldn't make. Hey, man. Every single one of them has to act quirky, and by quirky I mean they are all identical in outlook, and every quirk is dumbed down to likes music from the 1990s unironically, which isn't so much a quirk as it is a description of most human beings on the planet Earth. And of course, every single female character is best friends forever with literally every other female character ever, because God forbid if two female characters had a disagreement over a difference in a point of view, how could we tell which one was right if they are both female and females are always right? That is a great point that I never thought of. Wow, this guy is seriously given this some thought. That never even crossed my mind. I noticed that females are always friends, but his point is If they have an agreement, how can we tell which one is right? Who has the moral high ground sort of thing? I guess that seems obvious now that I say it out loud. This would set up a precedent where female characters wouldn't always be right on the basis of being female. That's okay. And no SJW hack writer, all of them, could ever accept that reality. It'd cause their heads to explode. You're just going to have to accept that the writing isn't nearly as nuanced as it used to be. With writers forgetting how to write and with books being generated by committee doing the paint-by-the-numbers thing rather than by a singular individual artistic vision with someone with something to say and an understanding of the fact that entertainment is meant to be entertaining to its core demographic. Okay, I did mention that, core demographics. Look at your audience. You know, they're mostly straight, they're mostly European, with the next biggest chunk probably Latino, and the next biggest chunk probably African American. So those are your three big chunks. You don't, when you include like a gay, transsexual, someone from Afghanistan practicing a religion that's 2% of your demographic, it doesn't make any sense. Your demographic religion is probably atheist and Christian, mostly. 5. New writers are written into existing books for reasons that have nothing to do with pushing an agenda. That's not an argument. The argument is that contemporary fake replacement, yes, I can't pronounce that word correctly, ersatz. I remember it's a word that meant talking about fake tea back in times of the Depression, fake coffee and tea, they called it ersatz, and chicory and fake coffees and stuff. Replacement characters only exist because a certain type of hack writer, upon being given the keys to some of the world's most successful IPs, can only think of how they can fix those IPs by replacing them with cheap and nasty knockoff characters. Oh, amen, dude. If these people had any skill as writers, they would simply make something new, but they don't. But they know they don't have that skill. They know the market won't support it, so they try to replace beloved characters with knockoffs and then get stroppy when they fail. Excellent word choice. And they always fail because these people can't write. They lack the skill. It is beyond them to write something good. 6. These attempts to sabotage movies and TV shows you don't like are pointless and need to stop. I don't know why they even brought it up in the first place. They aren't trying to sabotage anything. These consumers are telling you why they aren't going to pay to consume the product in question. Okay, that's a good point. That's not a flaw of free market capitalism. It's a feature one producers ignore at their own peril. Another good point. There's a reason why the saying, get woke, go broke exists, because it's true. No one can spruik an opening weekend like Captain Marvel did by claiming it's activism rather than entertainment. Oh, but you can't maintain that audience. It's not just a false economy, it's the falsest of false economies. And when it comes crashing down, and it always comes crashing down, it has a tendency to do so apocalyptically. Don't take my word for it, though. You only need to look at Ghostbusters, Star Trek, Doctor Who. Doctor Who is, that is a type of cancer, man. That's probably skin cancer and pancreatic cancer combined, the worst, absolute worst cancers. The entire comic book industry, when they get woke, they inevitably go broke. Okay, so yeah, they have had, woke movies do tend to fail. Captain Marvel wasn't a woke movie. It's just, Brie Larson's just a racist idiot. But it was a $1 billion success. But it was also nestled in between the two biggest movies in the Marvel Universe. So, nothing is stopping you from being the change you want to see. You mean other than a concerted, deliberate effort to do exactly that? Like Mark Waid's attempt to shut down a comic project because he personally did not like the creator's politics, even though those politics had nothing to do with the content of the project? Come on, stay in focus. Something which has resulted in Waid being sued for using Marvel and Disney's clout to destroy a project he didn't like. Or how about the plague of SJW writers, editors, and middle management like Santa Amanat, who actively stopped people from being the change they wanted to see, instead of hiring people based on writing skill, hired people with no comic book writing experience to write comic books. People that didn't even have related prose novel writing experience, let alone serialized prose novel writing experience. So yeah, that would be exactly stopping people from being the change they want to see. This thing about social justice war being an insult's got to stop. It's an insult because it began life as a self-given title lionized by the people that gave it to themselves. Yeah, that's what I thought. That's how I thought it started. But said people were also utterly insufferable, and so it started to be mocked for being the title taken up by know-nothing moral scolds. It will remain an insult until the day SJWs are no longer moral scolds. But since that will never happen, it will remain an insult. Because you people aren't virtuous, you are by and large scumbags who can't stand it when people stand up to you. And no amount of etymological contortionism will change those facts. Okay, so now I've refuted every single one of your positions. What else do you have? Damn, Matthew. Damn. She is swimming in deep waters when she speaks to you, because you knocked that one out of the park. I wish I knew who you were, because that was long and amazing. Matthew, no, can't click on it. Doesn't tell me who you are, but you did a great job. Anyway, this is at comiclistswordpress.com. Once more, Onto the Breach, dear friends. Once more, check it out for yourself. It's pretty funny. This guy, Matthew, just destroys her. Leave a like and a comment. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And thanks for listening.